feeling like I'm Akademiks. Can't ride no wave.
So y'all see me. I'll be eating a little bit of oxtail and jerk chicken on cereal. Okay, all right. So this thing is talking about what's going on in the Diddy trial. We missed the morning session. We're gonna get caught up really quickly, really quickly. Is everybody here tuned in? And if y'all are ready, we will get into it. Okay, are we good? Any donations I need to go pay attention to? By the way, shout out to everybody on our block. We're kicking on kick right now. We're doing pretty well on the Academy. And actually today, the Academy's beating King Akademiks on views. You know why? Because we took a week off King Akademiks. So the Academy got 7,000. The Academy, King Akademiks only has 6,500. So it is what it is. Anyway, good. All right, chat. Let's lock in. Thank you guys so much. I hope you know, through my coverage of everything, I'm so eternally grateful for you guys. You guys support so much. You rely on me so much. You trust in me so much. You expect from me so much that it's very surreal. So I appreciate you guys. All right, cool. Let's get to it. So this is this morning. This is 4 hours ago, but we're gonna catch up real quick. So Summeranian literally asked Mr. Steele, how much longer do you have on Cross? Steele says until lunch, maybe a little bit after that. Remember, Steele has been showing Mia, or trying to show Mia, videos. Remember the happy birthday video, chat? Let me look it up. What's the name of that? Oh, I gotta look him up. Remember that birthday song? There's a birthday song. Give me a second. Let's see if we can find it. Here we go. So Brian Steele and Mia is pretty much witness or victim number 2, because she also claims Diddy raped her. Give me 1 second. Give me a second. Yeah. So here we go. It was like Club Diddy or something like that. Deborah K, Sarah, Wishing, Puff. So this came up in court. Here's the strategy of Diddy and his legal team. Brian Steele is taking this, by the way. Brian Steele, pit bull. He's a bulldog. I'm not gonna lie, I've never seen him in a domestic violence or a rape case or a sex trafficking case, but he's exactly what we thought he would be, because we saw him in the trial with YSL, Jeffrey, aka Young Thug. He's pretty aggressive. He's gonna catch you in a lie. He's gonna expose it. He even went at the judge. He almost went to jail for going at the judge. Here's the thing. So we found out that Mia was actually Sarah Schnecker, and Brian Steele, on behalf of Diddy, was trying to bring up these videos. Because remember, she said Diddy raped her in like 2010. And she's saying, well, if a nigga raped you, why every year you keep wishing him happy birthday? Remember, she claimed Diddy first raped her on his birthday. Well, if he raped you on his birthday, how come every year you're setting up or recording videos to tell him happy birthday? And she would even write messages to say, yo, Sean, you don't know how important you are. So they were trying to get this video admitted. I'll play it real quick.
Shameless plug. Gotta put my lip gloss on. Poppin'! Puff Daddy, the living legend himself. You have not only revolutionized the game, but the entire world. I'm so blessed to call you my friend. Thank you for truly being one of the biggest inspirations in my life. To another 44 years of brilliance. Let's fuck shit up. I love you. Happy birthday. Revolt.
This is Rock Wayne Barnes. Amazing.
I see it's your number one fan here, Makisha, all the way from Jersey. Just wanted to send you some love on your birthday. My wish for you in this new year in life is much joy, much happiness, more success if that's even possible. And I pray that God showers you abundantly with his many blessings. I love you much.
To the world,
That shit is hot, that shit is whack. Fuck that shit.
My bad. Perfect. Happy birthday. My bad, Chad. Fuck. Keep telling you I can hear the playback, so I think I'm on. So here's the thing. I keep telling you, after especially this, right? The main thing for the defense is to say, yo, you said the dude raped you. And after he raped you, you recorded mad videos, texted him positively, talked about how good of a guy he was. He deserves all the best things in life and more. You love him. Why would you keep saying that to him years after if you're now testifying that you were so traumatized about all of this shit? Like, how does this work? Now, her response on the stand was, I don't know why victims still speak positively about people who victimize them. My postings on Instagram was just trying to show people I was happy, but people post on Instagram all the time when they're unhappy and try to show happiness. So she didn't really answer why the fuck she was cool with Diddy years after he raped her. So cool. Here we are now. So the judge then says, how long we have on the stand? Steele says, I don't know, but probably till about lunch or maybe after. The judge says, by the way, Steele, he's good with not giving direct answers because he wants to dig into this witness, right? He wants to really expose her. Remember, this is the second main witness. If I had to categorize all the witnesses, the first witness of importance is going to be Cassie. She's where all the case is built around. The second person is going to be, if you ask me, Mia. And then the third is going to be Capricorn Clark. Now, Capricorn Clark is really important, but now we get to see what's really going to happen. Okay. Because this is witness or victim 2, if you ask me. So the judge says, we're not going to have like 50 more Instagram posts, right? Is that what we're going to do? Steele says, I can't promise that. So he's keeping it open-ended that he could really expose this woman. He needs to expose her today. Judge says, defense, on the elevator hallway video, you're objecting to showing the versions we discussed? Defense says, yes, it shows Mr. Combs running 30% faster than it really happened. It's prejudicial. We let AUSA Smizer know how we will cross the expert. Judge says, let's have Mr. Garcia. And Mr. Garcia enters. It says, hey, who's Mr. Garcia? Oh, wow. It says, did you receive a subpoena to testify this trial? Mr. Garcia says, yes. Do you intend to invoke your Fifth Amendment right? Garcia says, yes. Says, have you seen the proposed immunity order? Garcia says, yes. AUSA says, Your Honor, on that basis, we propose you sign the immunity order. The judge says, done. Says, bring in witness Mia. So there's somebody named Mr. Garcia. Don't know who that is. Okay. Mia takes a stand back again, but we're going to hear more about Mr. Garcia. We'll see who that is. Mia takes a stand again, okay, which is, as we know, Sarah Schreneker. And the judge says, Steele, you may proceed. Combs, Steele, who is the lawyer for Combs, Mr. Steele, YSL Steele, says, let's show DX 1750. Smizer says, Your Honor, we renew our objections. The judge says, Mr. Steele, are we just going to show this video? You haven't laid any type of foundation. Take the video down, okay? Steele says, okay, fine. But did you work as an assistant to someone? Mia says, maybe in 2008, 2007. I'm not sure. Steele says, you had a resume saying you had the ability to multitask and had a thick skin. Mia says, yeah, I wrote that. Steele says, you wrote that you were able to deal with uncomfortable situations 24/7, right? Smizer says, objection. Reading for document that's not in evidence. The judge actually overrules. So Steele says, did you use this as your cover? What's CV? Cover? Is that cover memo or whatever? Mia says, looks like it. So they enter something into evidence, 1753. R, just as admitted, it says you went to James Madison University. So it looks like it's a it's a resume of some sort with a cover letter, maybe. It says James Madison University. It's a well-known institution, right? Mia says, sure. Says, then you were a design assistant, right? She says, yes. Combs Steele says, in 2008 to 2009, you said you provided round-the-clock support, all personal and professional needs, keeping passports. Were they all collected? She says, I don't remember. I didn't travel. Steele says, but you travel with Mr. Combs' companies, right? She says, oh, yes. Steele says, so when you said they had your passport, they had everybody's passport, right? Mia says, yes. Steele says, you're a strong person, right? Mia says, I'm good at teaching people. Not necessarily enforcing things, but I'm good at teaching. Steele says, you're a leader, right? Mia says, I don't know about that. Steele says, do you speak up for yourself? Mia says, no. Do you empower other people, though? She says, yes. Let's look at the text messages in 1730, okay? He says, I sound like me. Steele says, show the jury 1733. You left Mr. Combs' employment by March 17th. Mia says, yes. Steele says, what did you write to Combs for Christmas 2018? Please read it. Mia says, Merry Christmas, I love you. And the New Year's. I had just seen him at Kim's funeral. He says, so you reached out to him, huh? She says, absolutely. Steele says, so this is a 2019 message. Mia says, I wrote, I had a nightmare that I was being chased by R. Kelly, and you saved me. Steele says, the person you say raped you saved you in your dream? Objection comes from the AUSA. Judge says, just rephrase. He says, what did you write here? Mia says, sending you all the love in the world. Steele says, you are not in his grip anymore, right? Mia says, it's psychological. Steele says, why do you keep referring to psychology? Why do you do this? Kim Porter's tragic death was 5 months before. Were you reaching out to Mr. Combs? Oh, okay. So apparently they've now exposed that she hit up Diddy 5 months before Kim Porter died. So her whole statement, right? Her whole statement is that I only reached out to Diddy because Kim Porter died. But they now find out she reached out before. Okay. Mia says 5 months is not a lot. So apparently she reached out to Diddy 5 months before. Steele says, why didn't you understand that Mr. Combs was brutal to you? How did you write this? AUSA says objection. Judge says, Steele, let's have a brief sidebar. So they're trying to talk to Brian Steele. Brian Steele's job is to expose this woman as a liar, chat. They're back. Steele says, okay, all right, cool. I bet. Now it's May 14th, 2020. You texted Mr. Combs that day, right? What'd you text him? She says, my heart is broken about Dre. In my spirituality, I know that when people are done with the physical world, it's that they've completed their mission. I love you. Steele says, what was this about? Mia says he auditioned for the part of James Brown that Chad Boseman got. I told Diddy I'd email him video of his audition. Steele says, did you cry about a video camera? No, you carried a video camera, right? Let me put this up a little bit. Mia says he required me to do it. Pre-iPhone, I was required. Steele says, do you have any video of Diddy berating you? Smizer says objection. Judge says overruled. Mia says I wouldn't have not been able to record that. Steele says, do you have anything of Mr. Combs berating you at all? He says, it would have violated confidentiality. Steele says, so you have no text messages, right? Mia says, they showed me one on direct. Steele says, showing what? Mia says, Puff told me, fuck it, let's go to war. Steele says, Really? That's it? Nothing else? Mia says, only reaching out to other people in the office, things others had seen. Steele says, well, what did you write here? Mia says, I wrote, we had so many funny memories. Oh my, OMG. Steele says, anything in your phone about being brutalized by Combs? Mia says, I don't think so. Steele says, how will we find out? Smart says, objection. Judge says, sustained. Now, what you should notice, and I'm noticing it, Brian Steele is trying to have her introduce some evidence that they could put into evidence, right? So remember, this woman is a victim. So certain stuff cannot be brought into evidence because she's a victim. Now, it can't be brought into evidence unless Cassie mentions it herself and refers to it. Then it's fair game. So they're trying to bait her a bit to mention it, that they could be like, well, she mentioned it, now we have to talk about it because the jury has heard about it. What the AUSA keeps doing is doing the objection thing to say, judge, tell them they can't talk about it because they don't want to bring it into evidence. We don't know what that could be. Hold on. All right. Okay, so the judge sustains it. Mia then says, Steele says, Mia, didn't you have time away from Combs to write today he sexually assaulted me? Mia says, I did not have time and would have not written that. Steele says, what about August 19th or August 29th, 2020? He wrote to you, glad you're well, love. Please send me footage for the doc. Steele says, it's 2020. The Me Too movement is strong for 2 years. You could have said, I remember the bad times, right? Mia says, I would have never have said that. Steele says, because it's not true, right? Smyers said, objection. Judge says, overruled. Steele says, you wrote what? Mia says, love you too. Mia says, I wrote so many crazy things like Mick Jagger is trying to take me home and that Baccarat game, my pink bedazzled iPhone. There's trillions of stories. Of course I'll send to you. I was bamboozled by Heather. Remember the scrapbook I made you? I got you. So that's what Mia said she wrote to him around that time. Steele says, well, why didn't you write, you bamboozled me? Mia says, because I was brainwashed. Steele says, by whom? She says, by Puff. Then Steele says, how did he bamboozle you with a part of his body in your body without consent? Oh, shit. Basically saying, how did he bamboozle you by putting his dick in you? Objection comes from AUSA. Judge sustains it. Steele says, what does brainwashing mean? She says, the highs were really high. The lows were really low. I was punished whenever Puff was violent, making me believe I'd done something wrong. He was praised by the public. Steele then says, so you were aware of the Me Too movement and there was no outcry out of you, right? Mia says, he said he was going to tell Cassie what happened. I internalized blame and shame. Steele said, by the way, if you don't know, apparently Diddy would tell her, I'm going to tell Cassie that I fucked you. She was good friends with Cassie. Clearly, she didn't tell Cassie. She claimed she felt ashamed by it. She felt like, she would rather Cassie not know. Diddy's lawyers are saying, if you know about Diddy supposedly being a monster and abusing Cassie, why wouldn't you want to tell Cassie that he abused you too? So that's the both sides type of shit. Steele says, so Mia says, okay. Steele says, so who threatened to tell Ms. Ventura about Combs supposedly sexually assaulted you? She says, Puff. Now that's interesting. What they're trying to prove to the jury is that Diddy didn't sexual assault this woman. What sane individual sexual assaults someone and then says, I'm going to tell people I sexually assaulted you? It would most likely be that person trying to keep it quiet. So they're saying if Diddy was trying to threaten her with, I'm going to tell Cassie what happened with us, maybe it was consensual. And the obvious implications are, if I tell Cassie that we fucked, Cassie's going to know that you're a snake and you betrayed her and fucked her man. So that's what Diddy's lawyers are trying to prove. Steele says, well, why didn't you respond? I said, great, let's tell everyone what you did to me, right? AO says objection. Judge says sustain, let's move on. Steele says, you said you had a moral obligation to speak up. Mia says, now I do. Steele says, why not in 2017? Mia says, I was brainwashed. Steele says, when did you first say me too? She says, when I first saw him being held accountable or responsible. Now I have therapy. Steele says, Mr. Combright, I got to find that. You got a copy? What does it refer to? Mia says, I think he means the James Brown video. Steele says, the scrapbook? Mia says, I think I have PDFs. I think I gave it to you for a birthday in your house on Mapleton. I customized that purple leather suit so you could walk around not giving a fuck. If y'all can't find it, I will. I didn't. So Combs says, Brian Steele says, you had a PDF? She says, I thought so. Steele then says, what did you write here? Mia says, my grandma went into the hospice, so I have to fly out. I have to miss your event in my hometown. C'est la vie. Fucking crush it and make history. Heart emoji. Steele says, deepest sympathy for your grandmother. Mia says, thanks. So it looked like Steele was reading for Diddy. Steele says, what was this about? Mia says there had been some terrible event with the police. Pharrell organized an event to change the narrative about Beach Week, which I think is a college thing. Steele says, but you wanted to see Mr. Combs. Mia says, no, I didn't. I only said so. Mia says, my hometown of Virginia Beach doesn't usually get this type of attention. Steele says, so you're trying to tell the jury you were scared of Mr. Combs, true? Mia says, true. I was scared of him. He was scary. Steele says, listen to 1750. Tell me if you recognize. So they play an audio or something. Steele says, move to admit 1750 and 1750R. And the judge says, Ms. Smizer? Smizer said, we object. The proper basis for admission has not been established. The judge says, let's have a sidebar. They have a sidebar, then they come back. The judge said, may be admitted. The video is this video. So Inner City has been previously sent this, but now we're publishing the link. So I know a lot of people were upset, or they claim they were upset. They claim I doxed Mia. Well, Inner City Press is tweeting out the same video that identifies who Mia is, which is Sarah Schmecker. They take a break, then they come back. AUSA says, until now, we've been objecting to the exhibits and turning over private correspondence to this witness. We have now sat through hours of humiliating cross. Mr. Steele has insulted this witness, saying things like, God forbid, after she said whatever. One by one, Your Honor, let the exhibit in, but now cumulatively, we have reached harassment. So they're claiming Mr. Steele, Brian Steele, is harassing, okay? Harassing, let me see, give me a second. They're claiming Brian Steele is harassing this witness. It says, given the tone, we don't think continuing this is appropriate. She's carried herself with grace. This is adding to trauma. Eyes are on the trial. AUSA says, other victims in this trial will become aware of this. The judge says, I've not seen yelling. So the judge is being fair, saying, I don't know if this is harassment. By the way, keep in mind, here's the thing. These women or these people are voluntarily showing up to this trial, cooperating with the government, and they're saying they want to testify that Brian Steele is a monster. That Brian Steele is a monster, right? No, did I say Brian Steele's a monster? Okay. They're testifying that Diddy's a monster. They're doing this voluntarily. So if they're down to do this voluntarily, why does Diddy's lawyers not get to question them about if they're lying? So the judge is not looking at what Brian Steele is saying. He's looking at the tone, the demeanor. Is he coming across as scary? Does he coming across as like, you better answer this type shit? So he says, I've not seen yelling. My understanding is that his God forbid is an apology, not an attempt to intimidate, but the argumentative questions, is Mr. Steele here? You're repeating yourself. The judge says, if I feel you're asking a question just to ask him, I'm going to tell you to move on. Understood? So he's telling Steele, like, I'm not going to tell you, I don't think you're intimidating this person, but if I feel you're wasting time, I'm going to tell you to move on. Steele says, understood. The judge says, I don't see improper treatment here, Miss Comey. And he's talking to Maureen Comey. daughter of James Comey, which is a former FBI director, says, but I'll continue to watch. Steele says, okay. He starts out again. He says, I saw photographs 1799, 1 to 25. Judge says, could I see them? AUSA says, we don't have stamped versions of these. The judge says, do you have photos? AUSA says, yes, but we won't know which one you're referring to. Judge says, Mr. Steele, why don't they have stamped copies of these? Steele says, I only saw it this morning. The judge says, well, show them to them one by one. Next. Mr. Steele, what is the relevance of this? Steele says, impeachment. She said she had no time for herself to tell others. These images show Mia with friends and family over the years. The judge says, why would baby showers have relevance? Why not just ask questions about this? Why show these? Steele says, because I like to do impeachment that way. Ooh. Steele is saying, Brian Steele is standing on his square by saying, yeah, I don't have to use the exhibits and pictures, but when I usually try to catch a witness in a lie, I like to show proof. I like to show pictures. So the judge says, absent any further showing, they're excluded. So the judge stands on his authority. No, you're not showing the pictures. Steele says, could you admit them for the record at least? Judge says, no. Okay? So it looked like these are pictures that show that this woman, all these people are saying they didn't have time or they weren't around other people to possibly get a time to relax or raise these issues. What Brian Steele is saying, yes, you did. You had plenty of time to bring up these issues when you were chilling, vacationing with people. And the judge is saying, no, we're not going to show. There's no relevance. You could ask her the questions, no pictures. Then they're like, can we just put them on the record? Says no. So here we go. Steele says, we want them in if there's an appeal. Yo, Steele, as I keep telling y'all, chat, this is why I thought got off. Even when a judge says something, okay? Even when a judge says something, he's always down to still challenge a judge rather than just buckle. The thing with Brian Steele, he keeps fighting. And that's why I think one of the best traits of him as an attorney, he keeps fighting. The judge says, oh, we're not going to do that. He finds a way to bring that issue back up. He's a really good attorney. And when he's on your side, fuck what the judge is saying. He's going to find a way to try to get what he wants. And that's a great attorney, okay? Because sometimes the judge will be like, all right, nope. And then you give up. He's not giving up. Okay. AUSA says, yo, we'll put them in a case file. That's how we'll handle it. Steele says, no, I asked Mia if she still has friends. And she said she didn't see them. I didn't have an external sounding board. She says there was no time. The judge says the problem with you put in the post is that they're not relevant and they're not cumulative. You spent a lot of time on that scrapbook. Please bring Mia back in. So it looked like they overruled Steele. Steele's still trying to go, though. Says you and Ms. Ventura were best friends. Would that be a fair thing to say? She says, yes. Okay. Then the question becomes, you said she was your sister. Okay. Mia says, yes. Steele says, did you love her? Mia says, absolutely. Steele says, do you still feel the same way today? Mia says, yes. Steele says, so you would never lie to her, right? Mia says, well, Puff told me I couldn't tell her things, like where he was, anything he said. Steele says, was Ms. Ventura in love with Combs? Mia says, I thought so. Steele says, did you ever tell her the person she loved raped you? Mia says, no. Steele says, do you remember telling her Mr. Combs' brain need to be rewired? AUSA says, maybe we have a sidebar. Now, what Steele is trying to prove is that you claim, because she's saying, she's saying, I didn't tell Cassie certain things about Diddy because I wanted to protect her or protect whatever, or Diddy wouldn't want me to say that. He said, well, if Diddy didn't want you to say he raped her, why would you tell her, or Diddy didn't want you to say certain things? Why would you then tell her that Diddy's brain needs to be rewired? So they have a sidebar, and look like the sidebar is going on. They're back. They said, why would you cover up for Combs to Ms. Ventura? Why writing that Mr. Combs is just misunderstood? Another objection. The judge says rephrase. Steele says, did you tell Ms. Ventura she needs to stay with Combs? Mia says, I don't remember that. Mia says he could find out what I was telling her. So her excuse is, I didn't tell her things about Diddy. And I was like trying to encourage her to stay with Diddy because he was tracking her phone. He could read the messages, right? Steele says, how? Mia says, well, he had stolen my phone and Cassie's phone many times. He's put tracking devices on her car. Steele says, but you were alone with Miss Ventura. Mia says, yes. Steele says, you sued Mr. Combs for $10 million? Mia says, nah, it was a mediation. My lawyers ended up getting $200,000. And Steele says, you got $200,000, right? She says, yes. Steele says, please look at the screen. Is that your social media account? Mia says, yep, looks like my text messages. Sounds like me. Steele says, that's your text to Combs, right? She says, I don't remember sending this. Steele says, you're in a tutu. And Mr. Combs appeared to be holding his private parts. In Miss Ventura's lawsuit, she alleged sexual abuse. Mia says, yes. Steele says, so why did you still communicate with him? Objection. That was sustained. Steele says, did you meet with these prosecutors in January 2024? Mia says, I may have, but I don't remember the timing. Steele says, do you remember telling them Mr. Combs sexually assaulted you then? Mia says, I don't remember telling them. Let me tell you why that's important. Brian Steele's lawyer is trying to prove that Mia is an opportunist. When Mia first asked for money, she was asked for unpaid wages. Remember the whole thing where Diddy got mad about her with her because she got a lawyer, and she was like, Diddy, you told me to get a lawyer. They only came at Diddy for $10 million when they were trying to bring in other stuff out of unpaid wages. Then, despite wanting $10 million, they settled for $400,000. So Diddy's basically saying, you wanted money back then, you want money back even now. And they're trying to show this ain't about you being sexually assaulted by Diddy. This is all about you having an axe to grind and you want money. So they're saying the first time you met with prosecutors, did you tell them that Diddy raped you then? She said, I don't remember what I told him. Did you get a lawyer? Yes. Steele says the lawyer who had 45 days earlier obtained an erroneous judgment, right? So they said, objection, that's going to be sustained because you're prejudiced in this whole case by saying she got a bad lawyer. Steele says, why did you hire her? Says, objection. Judge says, sustained. Let's move on. Steele says, is it true you first only alleged of the sexual assault in June of 2024? So check it. January, she met with prosecutors. She doesn't allege sexual assault in June, till June. If you meet with a prosecutor, somebody raped you, they terrorized you, even more than what she did to Diddy, why wouldn't you tell them the first thing? No, not Diddy, I mean Cassie. Why wouldn't you tell them the first thing? Hey, fuck what Cassie got going on. He raped me too. So they're saying that she didn't tell about her sexual assaults until 6 months later. That's interesting. Mia says, I don't remember the timing of things. The rest I can't go into. I don't remember. It's privileged. Okay? AUSA says objection. Judge says sustained. Let's have a sidebar. They're trying to get Brian Steele Brian Steele's trying to expose her bad. Okay? Holy. They're back again. Steele says, let's talk about Prince's party. You say you didn't have permission to go there. But you knew many of the people who knew Combs would be there, right? Judge says, rephrase. Steele says, did you wear a disguise? She says, no. Any photos of a chase? She says, no. Steele says, you say you and Ms. Ventura got on a paddleboard into the storm, right? She says, yes. Any recording of that? No. Any note or text messages to prove it happened? Mia says, I don't think so. We were on a paddleboard. Steele says, did you make it up? Mia says, no. Steele says, you said you had no time with family. Did you ever go to events with your family and friends? Mia says, sporadically over the 8 years, but few and far in between. Steele said, how about weddings? He said, yeah, I think I went to my sister's and best friend's wedding, I believe. What about Halloween? Mia says, I don't remember. Steele says, you had times with other people too, though, right? She says, I had to not be in communication 24/7. I was never outside of his grip. Steele says, outside of the work environment, why couldn't you explain the abuse you say you're experiencing? Mia says it's much more complicated than that. Steele says, isn't it true that other than a few times Mr. Combs was violent with Ms. Ventura, which is never okay, you were comfortable with Mr. Combs? Judge says, rephrase. Steele says, did you ever advise Cassie to leave him? Mia says no. Steele says, until 2024, you've never told anyone you were sexually abused, right? Mia says, unless it was to my privileged therapist, that's true. Steele says, could you waive that privilege? Objection. Wow. You saw what happened? So Brian Steele is saying, so here's the thing. There's that's a healthcare thing. Therapist does fall into healthcare, mental health care. There's a right of privacy that has to do with you and a medical professional, right? What do they call it? Well, it's not necessarily HIPAA. Like HIPAA is the laws that prevent your medical records from being public. But to be able to waive your therapist to testify to his sessions with you, that is, I don't even know if that's just completely under HIPAA laws or that goes into something else. But regardless, that gets a objection. And the judge basically says move on, which means he's going to stand with the objection. So he's sustaining it because they don't want to open up a can of worms where a mental health care specialist has to testify about her or his sessions with a woman who claims she got sexually assaulted. Steele moves on and says, so you joined the Me Too money grab era against Mr. Combs, right? Another objection. Steele says, all right, I'll rephrase. Okay, did you know Miss Ventura received money from her lawsuit against Combs? Mia said it was public. Steele said, did you speak with Miss Ventura? Mia says, never anything about what I discussed with the government. Steele says, how would we know that? AUSA says, objection. Sustained. Steele says, let me show you the document. Read it to yourself, and Your Honor, could we have a sidebar? If they have a sidebar. The judge says, jurors, you can leave. Judge says to Mia, when we come back, you'll be shown documents. Have a good break, okay? We'll talk with the government over the break about the witness lawyer. Okay. Let me play. We got to figure, this seems explosive, chat. Let's figure out what happened. Shout out to Lauren, Colin. Here we go.
The United States versus Sean Combs, week 4, day 14. Okay, it is very spicy in court today during Brian Steele's cross-examination. I'm going to go back to this, but at one point after a break, the government actually got up, and again, Mia is still on the stand. The government got up and said that Brian Steele's style of cross-examination is going to deter other victims from coming forward and testifying in future cases because he is being so aggressive, because his line of questioning is humiliating, and because he's essentially accusing her of lying. But I'll get into a little bit more of that later. But the judge did say that he hasn't heard Brian Steele yell. He hasn't heard him be too aggressive, but what he has heard is Brian Steele asking improper questions, and then when he's supposed to rephrase the questions, he doesn't seem to do so properly right away. So the judge said, is he doing this on purpose so the jury hears what he's trying to say? And again, I'll get into an example of that in just a little bit, but let's just go back to the beginning, where they went through Mia's resume, and on her resume, he pointed out that, and this was the resume that she used to get the job with Diddy, Sean Combs, and he pointed out that she said, she's used to 24/7, that type of work environment, a fast-paced work environment. He pointed out things that she said in terms of having thick skin on her resume, and she actually said, I thought I did. And again, that was round-the-clock personal and professional needs. He also pointed out that on her resume, she said she collected personal items like driver's license, passports, etc. of, her client, aka Mike Myers, and others. And he actually pointed out the time that, and I'm not sure if I brought this up, she just said there was a time that Diddy yelled at her when they were in St. Bart's, and he had rented a boat. She counted money wrong or something, and she kind of ran away because he was threatening her or screaming at her. And she said that she couldn't leave St. Bart's because her passport was being held by someone on Diddy's team. So Steele just said, well, look, isn't that the way it goes? Your passports are always held, or something like that. We got through a lot of text messages again, and it was important that Steele pointed out that a lot of these text messages were sent 2018, 2019, and 2020, which is years after Mia stopped working at Bad Boy or Revolt. So she really stopped working at Revolt and Bad Boy in 2017, but she's sending Diddy Christmas texts that say, I love you, I'm thinking about you, multiple New Year's Eve texts. And then we actually saw a text that said that she had a dream, and this was in 2019. She had a dream she was trapped on an elevator with R. Kelly and that Diddy came to save her. We saw other text messages from 2019 where she was reminiscing about certain things that happened, and actually we heard some celebrity names there. She made a joke about running from Mick Jagger at a certain point, and then she said something along the lines of like Diddy making more money than Leonardo DiCaprio when they were gambling. I couldn't quite read it, but it said something like Diddy referred to Leonardo DiCaprio as that Titanic mother effer. It was kind of funny. And again, she said, I'm thinking of you a lot. This is an August 2020 message. And she said, I actually have a notes section in my phone, quote, funny shit Puff said. And Brian Steele said, well, do you have any notes in your phone about being brutalized? And then a lot of this also with this questioning about her, her not telling people or her not telling her family or anyone that what happened to her in the last decade. She had said previously in a transcript that he read, when the jury was not there, by the way, because he was trying to get other pictures admitted as evidence, he had said, you said you never saw your family, you never saw your friends, there was no time for that, but these pictures they were about to show, which again did not get admitted into evidence after all, would show her at weddings, at baby showers, being with her friends and family. So that is one of the questions that Brian Steele kind of hammered in. Why didn't you tell anyone about what was going on? And her answer to that also was that she was brainwashed. And he actually said, that's your answer? You were brainwashed? And he just said, well, what does that mean? And she just said, she went back to the highs were high and the lows were low, and that it was just a very confusing time for her. More texts of her in 2019 saying, sending you all the love in the world. And she said that a lot of these texts she sent was, this one in particular was about 5 months after Kim Porter's passing. So she felt really sorry for him. She texted him in May of 2020 when Andre Harrell passed, a really, really nice message about, how he's so inspirational, Diddy, and that, Harrell will be proud of him, all this stuff. And then another text message that Diddy sent her in August of 2020, he said something like, I hope you're well. I only remember the good times. I want you to know that. And then Mia says back, like something along the lines of, I will only remember the good times too. And now Steele brings up the fact that this is 2020 and it's been years since the Me Too movement came out. And he's asked her this before, but you know about the Me Too movement, you've heard of it, you're well aware of what was going on. You had said, previously that one of the reasons you didn't come forward is because social media was this place to kind of make it so your life is so perfect and wonderful, and the Me Too movement hadn't come out, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's out, now it's 2020. Why didn't you say anything? And again, she just goes back to, how it is being a victim and this and that, or a survivor. And then at one point, Brian Steele was just like, look, you talk a lot or you refer to the experts a lot. Like, this is something for the experts. Well, how do you feel? There was an objection. And again, there was a lot of objections. And this was based on the way that Brian Steele was forming his questions. He has said, he has just come out and said multiple times, like, isn't it true that you are lying about being a victim? And Mia has said, nope, everything I've said in this courtroom is the truth. And she has a really positive demeanor in general, I've noticed. So she really seems to have a good attitude about a lot of this questioning, because again, it's been multiple occasions where Steele has said, are you telling the truth? It seems like you're not telling the truth. Let me see. So then he brings up the fact that she met with the government 27 times, and that her first two meetings.
God damn, 27?
Tell them about the alleged sexual assault. And she said, I didn't tell them until I had counsel. Well, you could tell Brian Steele really wanted to get the name of her counsel in, Sean Crowley, and say, yeah, you got.
Ooh, okay, that was objected to. Sean Crowley? This guy? No, never mind, it's not him.
Sean Crowley, there was this big settlement right before you hired them, and then objection. He really wanted to get that in, but it turns out that Mia did bring a lawyer to her March of 2024 meeting, but she didn't tell the government about the alleged sexual assault until June of 2020.
So 6 months later, as I said. By the way, also, so apparently, you see that picture right here? You seeing, chat? That's Diddy and Mia. So, if we go here, I think this might have been after the rape too. So in 2013, they published a video. I don't know what this is. It's called Go Kindergarten. Okay? And Diddy, that's Diddy and Mia, my nigga. Which I think that's what they brought this up on Friday. They said, you don't think it's a little weird that you are in a music video with the nigga who you claim raped you, delivering your baby? Now, it's a fake baby, clearly. But apparently that's Mia and that's Diddy. Chat. I'm not gonna lie. I might have to change up my order and things. Capricorn Clark, she seemed to have the shit. Mia is kind of looking a little funny in the light here, chat. Somebody says an SNL skit. I get y'all about it being a skit. The point is this. Would you do a skit with a nigga who raped you? That's just the idea. Anyway.
24. Let me see. And then, they went into her relationship with Cassie, why she didn't share any of this with Cassie. And, do you remember ever warning Cassie about Diddy? You saw your, quote, sister. You're so close with her. You saw her I think it was last week, he said, you saw him pile drive her into a bed, and you still kind of stuck up for him and never told her to leave him or whatever. And she just said, it was my duty. I worked for him. I had to kind of make him look a certain way to her because, again, that's what I was paid to do. So after lunch, I think that they are going to probably try to move things along. They told Mia right before the break that she had to look at some transcripts from the government to sort of familiarize herself with that when we come back. But yeah, I think also people were asking about the jury last week, and there was reports of a juror laughing. I know the woman that I think people are referring to, I didn't see her laugh at all. She sort of had the same look on her face, like a half kind of smirk, the same look she had when Dawn Richard was being cross-examined by Nicole Westmoreland. She kind of just seems like she is sort of pro-defense, I guess, this woman. But today, the jury seems to be just listening intently, I would say. And Diddy seems a little frustrated, I have to say. The way that there's so many...
Okay. Let's try to we're trying our best to just get these updates. Looked like we didn't get one from Logic, but Lauren Crime probably got us one. We're just trying to figure out, because I'm not gonna lie, it looked like, I'm gonna be honest with you. This is from my summation, just reading the early morning session. Like Brian Steele went over the weekend and took it like, yo, we're down 10 going into the fourth. Like, he was moving like we're down 10. Okay? Here we go.
There's a lot to break down with what's happening today specifically. So we have alleged victim number 4 on the stand in this racketeering, sex trafficking, prostitution case. This is somebody named Mia, using a pseudonym, testified to being a personal assistant to Sean Combs, that she was abused by him in the past, that she was sexually assaulted by him. And yet today is a continuation of the cross-examination by Sean Combs' defense counsel, Brian Steele. Really questioning her about her resume, past messages she sent to Sean Combs, a lawsuit against Sean Combs when she worked with prosecutors, really going to the heart of her credibility. So I want to get now a first-hand perspective of this testimony and this cross-examination from Elizabeth Milner, law and crimes reporter who's been in that courtroom every single day of testimony, including today. Elizabeth, so good to see you. I want you to lay out for us what the cross-examination looked like. But before we even do that, there's one thing I want to get to specifically. There was a large back and forth last week regarding a video. It might have been a happy birthday video that was going to come into evidence, that wasn't going to come into evidence. The back and forth between the prosecution and the defense that, the defense says, oh, we just saw this video, we just got it. The prosecution, I think, was, raised an objection that you didn't give us advance notice of this. And it goes to the heart of her credibility, the way she's speaking in this video. Real quick, before we move on to the rest of the cross-examination, what is that video I'm talking about? And it was admitted into evidence today, right?
Yeah, it definitely was admitted into evidence today. I was a little kind of confused just about the video per se, because at first when they were kind of talking about the video, they were making it seem like Mia had gotten all these different happy birthday messages from not only herself, but also from loved ones of Diddy too. So I was thinking that it'd be kind of a compilation of just maybe some famous faces, those who are close to Diddy, all saying happy birthday. But for this video that we saw in court specifically, it was a present for Diddy's 44th birthday. And you can see Mia on camera. And it was interesting too, because the video that we saw in the gallery, it wasn't Mia's face blurred out. We really saw her her actual face, as we do while we're inside that courtroom. But as far as what she's saying on this video, she's applying lip gloss on this video, kind of getting ready for the camera. And then she calls Diddy things along the lines of he's a big inspiration. She blows a kiss to the camera and pretty much just says happy birthday to him. And so I think, yeah, to your point, Jesse, the defense was trying to have this video in because they say this is Mia's true demeanor. They say what she presented herself in or presented herself on as far as direct testimony goes isn't her true self, that she's kind of playing it up for the jury. But they wanted to introduce this video in pretty badly in order to kind of show that this is the real and true Mia, which is interesting too, because I think even as she's reading her text message she sends either to Diddy or somebody else, that she's kind of saying it in her true voice. She's not kind of speaking in like a meek, soft-toned kind of speech or anything. But for the most part, it was something that the defense definitely wanted in, and they were able to get that video in today.
So, by the way, I've seen you guys say this, and I'm starting to watch out for it. I've heard people suggested me, like, I get it. You read the tweets. We haven't really gotten to too much transcripts because those are going to be old. We're getting them about like every 2 days. They're 2 days late at this point, almost every time. And they're like, we know we're doing live trial coverage. There's no cameras in court, but when you go to Law and Crimes, like, bro, they don't want to see Diddy beat this shit. Like, bro, like they're on. So y'all have told me that they're biased. So I seen y'all suggest a few other outlets who have more of a realistic perspective. Continue to suggest those people because I do want to get a balanced perspective. I don't want to just listen to people who are just telling us one way, because that's what happened in the Tory case, I believe. I felt like we kept listening to the people who were telling us, oh yeah, this shit is like, it's just a breeze. Tory's gonna beat it, and then he didn't. So we want realistic court stories. Yeah, and I know there was a whole back and forth last week about, like you said, her affect. Is she really testifying in her true voice? But other than just the substance of it, why are you wishing a happy birthday to a man that tormented you and abused you? Now, as she claims, sexually assaulted her. So I now want to go into the continuation of this cross-examination. There was a lot that was brought up. Everything from her resume, was she a strong leader who could speak up for herself? Past messages she sent to Sean Combs, the lawsuit that she filed against him, when she decided to work with prosecutors. Because I think the central theme is that she's only going after Sean Combs for what? Money? So talk to us about what was the substance of the cross-examination today.
Well, the substance of it overall, to your point, Jesse, was kind of all over the place. We were hearing about her resume. We were seeing a bunch of text messages. We were seeing a bunch of, I would say, a bunch of photos too. But even as far as just the start of it this morning, Mia still kind of presents herself in the same way, keeping her head down while she walks to the witness stand, just walks directly to the witness stand, doesn't make a look at the defense, doesn't look at us in the press, none of that. She just walks to the witness stand, sits down, and then the jury's brought in, and then they continue with her cross-examination. But even for the most part, while Brian Steele was continuing her cross-examination, he doesn't do things like other defense attorneys we've seen do. He doesn't say hello, good morning, how is you? He didn't do any of that. He really just kind of got right into the exhibits, and then there was kind of an issue on whether or not this exhibit should be shown, and it was just like it seemed like it was taking a little bit forever for things to pretty much get started this morning. But she was asked this morning, where did you attend university? Where'd you go to college? What was your GPA? So after your study abroad, you were an assistant to somebody, and Mia's responding yes to all of this. And then they bring up her resume. They literally showed her resume, obviously not with her real name or anything like that, but of course with Mia written on it. And I was just like, where is this going as far as why they're bringing up a resume that she had did after she completed college and probably when she was applying for this job? Why are they bringing this into evidence? And so they talked about how in her specific bullet points under the descriptions for her job, how she catered to celebrity clients and always addressed their studio needs and kept inventory of all personal possessions, documentation, including passports. So they kind of brought it back to her direct testimony where she was explaining how she was trying to escape Diddy and how Diddy had kept hold of her passport. But Brian still asked her, when you said your passport was being held, that wasn't just your passport, it was everybody's passport. And Mia responded yes. Mia was asked, you take on responsibilities? She said true. You're a leader. She said, she kind of is pausing before she's answering this question, which I thought was pretty interesting because she was like, I don't know how you can really answer that. And then Brian still says, but you tell others to speak up for themselves. Mia says yes. Then we see an exhibit, kind of a zoomed in portion of Mia's resume, how she speaks 4 languages, how she has thick skin. And so I think what Brian Steele and the defense was trying to do was kind of use her resume in a way against her, where it's like, okay, you say you have thick skin, you say you can work these long hours without feeling overworked, and you say that you're this team player and team leader. And so then the defense kind of passes out those binders again with all the exhibits. And so we see Mia recognizing her text message. So those were moved into evidence. So we see text messages from Mia to Diddy first in December 27th of 2018. So this was after Mia was no longer working for Combs Enterprise. Mia says, "Merry Christmas. I love you so, so much." Diddy said, "Same to you." And he responded and sent that message 2 days after Mia sent her initial message. Then a week later, Mia says, "Happy New Year's." Then we see another text exhibit of a message from Mia. This text was also after Mia left the job, where she said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, that she had a nightmare that she was trapped in an elevator with R. Kelly and that you came to my rescue. And the you she's referring to is obviously Diddy. And then Brian still asked, so you told the jury that this person who terrorized you, caused you PTSD, was the person who came to your rescue? And there was an objection. It was sustained. Then we see another text exhibit, this one from March 8th of 2019. Mia telling Diddy, "Sending you all the love in the world," heart emoji. And then the defense is saying, "You weren't under Mr. Combs's spell then." And she was like, "Well, I was. It was psychological. It was because Kim had just passed away. I felt horrible." And Brian still is like, "Ma'am, this death happened 5 months earlier." And she says, "Yes. Why did you continue reaching out?" And so that was kind of the gist of where we were going with it. We saw more text.
Oh, okay. So I may have got that wrong when I said it. Remember I said she was reaching out before the death of Kim Porter? Looks like she was reaching out after. But the way they said it, they said something earlier. So it wasn't the messages that came earlier. It was a death that was happening earlier. But it was 5 months after. Just had to clarify that, okay?
Exhibits from March 8th. We saw, or excuse me, not this past March 8th, but we saw text exhibits from March 8th of 20.
By the way, you see this on the screen? That's because they showed this video, right? You could tell. The court reporter who drew it, that's what's on the screen. Yep.
2018 or 2019, I believe. We saw a text from New Year's Eve from 2019 from Mia to Diddy. We saw another text May 14th of 2020, a text to Diddy 3 years after Mia had left, where Mia said something along the lines of, "Puff, my heart is broken about Dre. You are one of the most influential people. I know it's excruciating. I will always be there." We see another message from Mia to Diddy about Chadwick Boseman's death. Then it just seems like they were just kind of going over text after text after text. And then Mia is asked, you had the capability of carrying around a phone with you. Did you have any recordings of Mr. Combs berating you? And Mia responds, no, he wouldn't allow it. Do you have any texts with family or friends about what Mr. Combs put you through? No, it was all kept a secret. And I felt like the line of questioning was kind of hard to watch at points, right? Because this is alleged victim number 4. This is also, you know, a victim who had talked about how she was sexually abused, sexually assaulted by her boss. But it seems like from the defense's perspective that this didn't even happen, because Brian Steele would say something along the lines of the supposed sexual assault, or this didn't happen to you. You made all of this up. It was really just that intensive of questioning, or that intensive questioning, I should say. Then we saw an exhibit photo, a text from August 29th of 2020. Mia saying, life is effing insane. It happens for a reason, that I've been tapping into spirituality. Mia's asked, do you have any random notes about you being brutalized by Mr. Combs? And she says, I don't believe so. She's asked, do you have any notes that Mr. Combs was violent towards you and unprofessional towards you? She said, no. Did you write in your notes today that Mr. Combs sexually assaulted you? Mia wrote, no. You sent these messages, and the Me Too movement was strong for 2.5 years, and these messages were sent in 2020. Why didn't you respond, or that you remembered all the bad times that you had with Mr. Combs? Is it because it's not true? And Mia said, I didn't lie in this courtroom. Everything that I said is true. And again, it was a little harsh to kind of watch, because again, it just seemed like from the defense's perspective that they were really kind of painting Mia out to be this liar, that she made things up, that Mr. Combs or Diddy never sexually assaulted her, that these events didn't happen, because why is she sending these text messages saying love you and Happy New Year's, Merry Christmas, and just sending him good wishes even after the fact? And so Mia's asked constantly, why didn't you say that Mr. Combs bamboozled you? And Mia responds, I was still brainwashed. Steele asks, what does brainwash mean? And Mia says, I was in an environment where highs were high. I would try so hard to get back into that good space. I felt like I had done something horrific by going to mediation, like I did something wrong. I was constantly seeking his approval. He was a constant authority figure, the only authority figure that I guess she had. And so to me, and again, Jesse, you know, we cover these types of cases all the time at Law and Crime about why victims don't come forward. And I felt like watching this cross-examination, it felt like this is the exact reason why victims don't come forward. Brian Steele was, quite frankly, very harsh with her. And I think even the government was kind of pointing it out, too, because there were some arguments outside of the presence of the jury where the government accused Brian Steele of yelling at her and being sarcastic with her. The judge didn't necessarily see it that way, but I think other people who were in the gallery, maybe not per se the jurors or anything like that, but really we're seeing just kind of like how
From what
it was just kind of the same.
Okay, so I think we got a good like barometer here. We'll try to pop up Logic. I don't think he recorded anything. I don't know if he's at court today. If you guys have, some people have told me that there are some other people who are kind of more, you know, favorable to Diddy. If you guys point me to their channel, I'll surely put them on
the sex traffic
of sexually abusing several women. She is one of 3 women who are going to be testifying during the trial. And she has said that during her employment for him as a personal assistant from 2008 until 2007, or actually 2009 until 2017, that he first molested her and tried to forcibly kiss her at his 40th birthday party shortly after she got hired, and then months later raped her in a guest room at his home in Los Angeles. And she's been under cross-examination now for 2 days. And while a lot of the lawyers for Sean Combs have been very friendly with some of the witnesses who reluctantly testified for the government, lawyer Brian Steele has been very aggressive in cross-examining Mia, and even suggested today that she was making up her allegations, which she insisted was not true, that she's only testified truthfully over the last 3 days. But he again and again confronted her with text messages she had sent to Sean Combs after she was no longer working for him between 2018 and 2023, in which she expressed how much she loved Sean Combs and appreciated how much she'd learned from him and how her opinions about him would never change. And finally, he asked her directly, how can you say these things? You know, at one point, he even confronted her with a text message in which he said she had a nightmare in which she was in an elevator with singer R. Kelly. You know, Sean Combs, when you're having a nightmare in which he...
Interesting line of questionary.
Okay, we're still on pace to try to just catch up. Remember, I think I don't know if they're getting out at 4 today or 5. I don't think this is a 3 o'clock week. So let's just get back in court and we'll just kind of read. We'll catch up on things we may have missed. If you don't know why we listen to other people speak, and I know some people are like, we were here for you. Completely get it, but we're not in court. You know, we're going off these messages. We don't know how it's being taken. We don't know if it's coming across like, yo, bro, y'all are doing too much, or it's coming across like, damn, this chick is getting exposed. We don't know. So we're trying to get an accurate, depiction of what's going on. So anyway, here we go, people. Okay, so they're back. Steele says, the judge says, Steele, you may proceed. They said, Mia, were you able to review over the break some of your interviews with the prosecutors? Mia says, I actually did. Steele says, you didn't mention sexual abuse before July or June 2024. Mia says, I don't remember the dates. Chat, let me ask you a question. Is that, now I have to be honest with you. I do think that's the big thing. The government comes to you to investigate a guy for sex trafficking. And I would imagine her first couple of meetings, they met with her 27 times. We don't know when or how many were before June 2024. But immediately what doesn't come to your mind is that, yo, this guy raped me. Let me tell you this day one. You tell him that 6 months later, the government is investigating this guy for sex trafficking. That's the first thing. Be like, oh, bingo, he raped me. It took 6 months for you to tell him that? I don't know. Now, you see, this is the thing when it comes to victims. They're like, oh, well, she was suppressing that thought. She couldn't really... Okay, whatever. But that do sound a little odd to me. She says she don't remember the dates now. Steele says, did you give all your materials to the government? Mia says, I gave them to my lawyer. Then they gave them to the government. Steele said, what about this? Look at this. Steele says, in these notes, did you raise any sexual abuse concerns to the prosecutors? AO says, objection, improper refreshment. Justice overruled. Steele says, did you raise it in 2024? Mia says, definitely not during the first meeting. Mia says, I don't remember each specific meeting, but I definitely didn't raise it in the first meeting. Steele says, what about this next document that you just reviewed? The judge said, just ask her if her recollections were fresh. Mia says, no, it's not to the specifics. Steele says, you never mentioned sexual abuse until you hired a lawyer, right? Sean Crowley. Mia says, I don't know when I first mentioned that he raped me, except I just know it was after when I had representation. Steele says, do you intend to sue Combs for compensation? You want money, right? She said, no, I don't. Steele says, who have you worked for since? Mia says, Madonna. She says, for how long? From 8 months, from April 2019. Steele says, when you did that, did Mr. Combs assist you in getting that job? Mia says, absolutely not. Steele says, so you were not blacklisted as you previously said. You would be scared that you would be. She said, no. Did you get any retribution from Diddy? She says, well, he took away the TV show and the credit that was promised. Steele says, but you told the jury you were surprised you were let go, right? Mia says, I did. Steele says, were you let go for drinking? She says, no. Steele says, do you remember the Cassie video called Official Girl? She says, yes. And King of Hearts, her song with Nicki Minaj and The Boys? She says, yes. Steele says, is Nicki Minaj well known? She says, yes. Steele says, and Cassie did a song, Numb, with Rick Ross, right? Mia says, yes. Steele says, and I love it too, right? With Fabulous, right? She says yes. Okay. And do you remember Cassie being in the studio with Kid Cudi? I don't remember that one. I don't remember specifics. What about her being in the studio with Combs? I remember that. Steele says, the TV show you mentioned, what was that about? Mia said it was about my experience. Steele says, how a person from a small town deals with like a person, like how does a person like that deal with someone like Mr. Combs? Mia says, a comedic version. Steele says, what other films did you work on? Mia says, Dope, Lawless, Undefeated. Mia says, so you enjoy these projects, right? Mia says, no. Steele says, so didn't you call these people your second family? Mia says, we all called it that. Steele says, didn't you think that Diddy was a genius? Mia says, at the time I did. Steele says, you continue to want to work for Diddy, right? Mia says, I wanted to continue to follow my dream. Steele says, do you know if Mr. Combs' company put more money in promoting Miss Ventura than any other artist? Mia says, I didn't. Absolutely, I didn't absorb everything. Steele says, who's Jason Wiley? Mia says he worked for the record label. Steele says, in budgeting, right? Steele also says, do you remember giving the opportunity to have your therapist's notes be seen by the parties? AUSA says, objection. Judge says, sidebar. Now, keep in mind, there's something interesting going on here, Chad. I hope y'all are peeping it. Didn't I say that Steele, he's good at, first of all, they have a big research team. But what Steele does good is you have to do it in a certain way to introduce new evidence. It appears that Steele and Diddy's attorneys or, private investigators knows that probably when this woman went to therapy, she wasn't saying that Diddy assaulted her. Maybe she said, yo, I love Diddy. Maybe she says, man, really, in another lifetime, me and Diddy should be together. So Diddy's lawyers keep saying, well, if you talked about rape with your attorneys, has anyone actually seen your attorney? No, not attorney, with your therapist. Were you given the opportunity to share your notes with the prosecutor or whoever? AUSA objects. Judge says sidebar. So during the sidebar, here's a court. There's a court art testimony. Court art courtesy of Inner City Press from artist named Elizabeth Williams. So you got Diddy right here. Diddy, Mark Ignifilo, Tenny Garagos, Brian Big Steele. Pause. They're back. Steele says, have you ever called law enforcement? She said, I did not. Steele says, you say you were stopped while speeding in L.A. Didn't Mr. Combs get you out of that? Mia says, I do. Steele says, did you ever think about calling anyone anonymously? She says, no. Steele says, when you said Mr. Combs hurt your arm, did you seek medical help? She said, no, I wouldn't have been allowed. Steele said, did you take photos? No. Did you scream? She says, no, I was in shock. Steele says, before the 5 days you say you were awake, did you ever stay awake that long? She says, no. Steele says, you testify you would give up all the money in the world had there not been sexual abuse. Any discussion that you will make money by testifying? She says, no. Mia says, not even a thing. Steele says, Your Honor, can I set up those other matters? Judge says, yes, we'll break for that. They break. They come back 12 minutes ago. Steele says, nothing further. The judge says, member of the jury do not consider any of this testimony about the witness communication with her therapist. And Ms. Smizer, do you want to redirect? Smizer says, okay, I do. Mia, was posting to social media part of your job? She says, yes. AUSA says, as part of that, did you post on your personal Instagram account? She says, yes. What did Mr. Combs do if he thought you weren't doing your job? Mia says, I'd be yelled at and humiliated. AUSA says, did the other employees also post for Mr. Combs' birthday? Yes. AUSA says, the birthday video, was it for Club Diddy? She says, yes. AUSA says, did Mr. Combs co-own the water you were drinking? And did you say Revolt, the project you work on, at the end? She says, yes. AUSA says, you posted about the good times and not the bad? She says, yes. All right, chat, we're here. Okay, we got a couple more tweets. Let's go back to that one video, infamously. Okay, not this one. It's the video of sorry, Chad. I guess in the video, let's go back to the birthday shout out. Here we go. Oh, so this water. Let's look at the name. Oh, I just had it. It's called what? Alaqua or whatever. I remember when Diddy introduced the water. Diddy introduces his line of water. I remember him talking about it. Oh, it's aqua. Never mind.
Shout out to everybody in social media, digitally all over.
That is his water. So I guess the prosecutor came back and said, yo, she was still being coerced. That's why she made the fucking video. She didn't want to do that. Look, she's even drinking his water in the video. You know?
Wow.
Okay. All right. Let's keep it going, people. Let's keep it going. All right. So here's some more tweets. AUSA says, and this is Smizer, I believe, says, why did you want to make the person who abused you happy? Okay? Give me 1 second. Why did you want to make them happy? Mia says, when I was happy, I was safe. AUSA says, were you worried about your physical safety? Now, here's the thing too, Chad. And I don't want to take sides here. I don't. But you could tell when AUSA questions, now she's their witness. She has really good answers. It's only on cross-direct, right? Or not cross-direct. I mean, cross-examination, she seemed flustered. Why? The reason the government met with her 27 times, probably at least 10 times, is to go over her testimony and go over like, hey, when we ask you this, you should probably say something like this. So this is why, like, when the AUSA talks to her, her answers be hidden. He says, well, it's because, remember, that's their witness. Why did you want to make the person who abused you happy? When I was happy, I was safe. Were you worried about your physical safety? Yes. I've been abused by Puff before. I knew his wrath. AUSA says, did you engage in a pro bono lawyer? She says, yes. Now, they're getting ahead of the recross. Smizer said, why did you meet with the government so much? Mia says, so my story could be understood. See? Instead of that they could coach me, oh, that they could understand my story. Got you. AUSA says, were you terrified? Of Puff, of course, and the repercussions. Smizer then says, did the government tell you what to say? No. The government never told me what to say. Only to tell the truth. Smizer says, how do you feel about public speaking? Oh, I'm terrified. AUSA says, can you explain that? Given that you've been in comedy. So they're jumping ahead of what Brian Steele probably going to put in, right? Or say. So, yeah, I did comedy, but I had Puff permission for that. Back again with Puff. AUSA says, any comparison to testify about Combs sexually assaulting you here? Basically saying, well, how could you be shy? Because they're thinking what the defense is going to say. How you shy but you up here testifying? It's the biggest trial in the world. So she said, nah, I'm usually not shy. And, I mean, I am shy, but I've done public speaking before, but it was some comedy shit, but I only did it when Diddy told me to do it. So they're playing it good here. Smizer says, why are you here today? Mia says, if I wasn't here, I couldn't look my goddaughters in the eye and never advise them what to do in this situation. Judge says, Mr. Steele, any recross? Steele says, no, sir. Judge says, Mia, you may go, unless you want to stay. And then it appears, so Steele didn't want to do a recross. She's finally off the stand. Holy. Why don't we have logic with an update?
There, when we talk about a witness describing a nightmare, so to speak, in a case that is very serious, very sensitive, and as always, viewer discretion advised to anyone that is watching this along with us. Larry, describe to us Diddy's demeanor today in court. How much communication has he had with his lawyers?
Well, lots of communication with the lawyers. He's been very involved, as we've seen day after day, in his defense. Oftentimes, or at least twice that I've seen, he's not allowed his lawyers to finish questioning a witness until he gave the nod of approval. And that's the kind of hands-on involvement in a defense that you don't normally see from a defendant. So he has been hands-on from the start, though.
Wow. That's concerning, though, for me. If you're Team Diddy, that's concerning for me. If the defense attorneys can't stop questioning a witness until Diddy gives them the, like, one of those head nods, like, we're good. You know what it tells me? These niggas might just be running up a big check just to get him happy. Like, hey, we'll do whatever you want as long as you pay us. But it is problematic if Diddy is the barometer of, hey, you didn't question enough versus, okay, now it's time to chill. I don't know if Diddy leading that or Diddy having to approve that helps him. You gotta have you're a defendant. You gotta let the people who are your lawyers, especially your main lawyer, be the person that dictates that. Because you might start being emotional. Somebody's on the stand saying something that you're like, that's a lie. Instead of you saying, all right, let's try to get him a different way and chill, you tell him, nah, you don't give him the head nod, that witness gets badgered. A badgered witness in a sexual assault case is not good.
Very involved in his defense and very serious in the courtroom, but also seems somewhat businesslike. You can imagine as you watch him in the courtroom that, yeah, he is the CEO of his companies and he's a guy who has run successful businesses, as Sean Combs has. So that comes across. The jurors, as always, are extremely attentive, taking notes, facing toward the witness during testimony, no matter who is on the witness stand. It's one of the most alert, pay attention juries I've ever seen.
Larry, we know that the cross-examination of that alleged victim of Diddy continuing on right now. Do we expect that to finish today? And who are we going to hear from next?
Yes, we do expect that to finish today. It's unclear exactly who will be on the stand next because there have been some negotiating going on as to whether or not the defense will ultimately call a witness to kind of cast doubt upon these tapes that were shown early in the trial of Cassandra. Cassie is, what she's known as in the music world, but Cassandra Ventura.
We're still in the Diddy trial. We're just trying to figure out these ancillary portions. To be very clear, Lauren London gets mentioned twice. Nothing. I mean, you could use some brain power and be like, maybe she was down with some of this stuff, but nothing actually said she was a member or she was actually in a sexual situation. But was she around times and places that sexual situations was happening? Yes, I'll say that. But it doesn't mean she was involved. Okay, so they call it their next witness, and now the next witness is on the stand. Oh my God, what the fuck is this? Sorry, chat. Here we go. Okay. So the next witness is Sylvia Oken. Okay, never mind. We don't even got to Google her. She says who she is. They call Sylvia Oken. This person says, I've been working for the Beverly Hill Hotels for 17 years. I'm a director of sales and marketing. They says, how do reservations work? We use a system called Oprah. AUSA says, does that link a customer alias to their real name? It says, yes. So, and this one, who is it really? It says, Sean Combs. Can a guest change his or hers alias? And they're saying yes. So if you guys don't know, it looks like the government called this witness to show that Diddy was booking names under the name Frank Black, okay? Frank Black Diddy. This is really interesting.
Photos of Diddy's freak-off evidence was just released.
Now, here's the thing. He also got prescriptions under Frank Black. I wonder if he had a fake ID for Frank Black. Must have, right?
And these are all the photos from the hotel room that the feds raided when they arrested Diddy. We have to start out with this clonazepam because you know your girl be deep diving, and this medication bottle that they found has the name Frank Black on it. Cassie Ventura said in her testimony multiple times that Frank Black was Diddy's alias that he would use during these freak-offs when getting hotel rooms and more. Now, there wasn't a doctor that we could see listed on this medicine bottle, but you know me, I went and did some digging on things that I could find, and we are about to get into it, but I do want to touch on one crazy thing. Now, if you didn't know, clonazepam is an anxiety medicine, and it can also be used to relax tense muscles. But this freaks me out, because if you remember, in Cassie Ventura's statement, she said how she would get so anxious before these freak-offs, sometimes she would even vomit during them, and Diddy would tell her to continue. This made me think of Diddy's ex-assistant, Philip Pines, who was on the fall for Diddy, who said that it was his job to set up these freak-offs, who released text messages between him and Christina Korm, voice memos for Diddy, and even admitted that he testified to the grand jury. In the text messages that he released, this is one of the substances that Christina Korm would ask him to bring Diddy. And
ooh, I didn't see that. Said, give him lorazepam, give him 3. Zolpidem, give him 2. Cialis, oh shit, give him 3. Clonazepam, give him 5.
this is one of the substances that Christina Korm would ask him to bring Diddy. And I'm cooking, just stay with me. So on this bottle, it says 2811 Wilshire Boulevard Suite 610. Now, it seems like Diddy got this medicine prescribed to him under the alias Frank Black from Lifespan Medicine, because this is the same address, Suite 610. When you look up Lifespan Medicine, it shows that they have a holistic doctor, and keep this in mind. You guys know I stayed in the court dockets way before this trial even started, and one of the things that Diddy was arguing is that he wanted all of the evidence thrown out from the search warrants of his home, but the government said that they had more than enough probable cause from all of these people listed for all of these different things, including narcotic offenses. Just all of these people listed right here were enough probable cause.
Now, here's the thing. What I think happened, so the government, I don't know if you can see. Okay. They used somebody called Producer One. So I don't know if you guys know. The reason one of Diddy's cribs got raided is because of Lil Rod. Lil Rod is the same guy who claims Meek Mill's gay, that Stevie J was fucking on a porn star or some porn video. We've kind of realized that Lil Rod is kind of, you know? Anyway, he was the one who provided the info that gave them probable cause to do the raid. So at first, Diddy's lawyers trying to suppress this evidence. How? By saying, yo, the person who gave you probable cause, he's a known liar. Not only is he a known liar, y'all know he's a known liar, you're not even using him in your case. It's like, imagine somebody said to the cops, you'll go raid this guy's house because I was just there and I was just there. He was doing X, Y, and Z to me, and I know X, Y, and Z is going to be found in X, Y, and Z, right? They raid Diddy's house, but when it comes time to the trial, they're not using Lil Rod, so they're coming back around and say, yo, Lil Rod has been inconsistent. The idea that you guys use him as probable cause is kind of like fraudulent. Everything found with your probable cause that you got from his statements should have been thrown out because he's not fully truthful. That's why they keep saying Producer One, but they did use a statement.
For all of these different things, include
they use what Rod said to go get the what is it called again? The probable cause to search residences.
All of these people listed for all of these different things, including narcotic offenses. Just all of these people listed right here were enough probable cause to charge Diddy with narcotic offenses. A-list Assistant One up at the top is being one of these people that corroborated this information with another person known as Producer One. They said Assistant One and Producer One's information corroborated each other about narcotic offenses, and I believe that these two people people are Philip Pines and Little Rod Jones, because both of these people worked during the Love album era. And I named Little Rod Jones because he is the one that in his lawsuit included a lot of different pictures of stuff, and one of the pictures that he included was of Diddy having Toosie. Here we go again, seeing the Toosie. This is another photo that was just released of Diddy's hotel room the day that he got arrested, and they raided it, and they found Toosie, they found baby oil, and more. And we'll get to the rest of the photos in just a second. What I really think Diddy is screwed about with his alias Frank Black is the fact that you can see right here, the government talked to a holistic doctor. Seems like Diddy is caught up with this alias. He can't try.
Ooh, so these are the people who are telling on him. So first of all, producer one, that was Lil Rod. So this it was they were validating their search warrant. For search warrant, they needed probable cause, right? They need probable cause to go search a residence, but it has to be really good probable cause because again, you're infringing on someone's privacy, and also you might be violating their Fourth Amendment right, the right against unlawful searches and seizures. So you have to have really good. It's not like, oh, I smell like the cops are not going to get a search warrant and be like, I smelled weed in your house. Let's search your entire house for weed. Not going to happen. So it has to be really strong probable cause. And in the probable cause, they came with producer one, Lil Rod, victim one, Cassie, sex worker one. I don't know who that is. Might be Jules, but like I don't know if Jules has ever been to the. I think this was for the Star Island property, the 2-Star Island. I don't know if they did that. And they're saying there's a doctor who was also one of the people as well. Interesting.
Try to blame this on anybody else that was in that room that day. He can't try to pass it off.
And if you look behind her head right here, it says designer one.
Because it seems like they talked to the holistic doctor where Diddy would have got this medicine from in the alias name Frank Black, which could tie into other things that Cassie Ventura was alleging, because she said Diddy used this alias to get these workers to rent hotel rooms and more. Y'all see what I'm talking about now? I pretty much probably already knew this about the government, because they say the government doesn't play. They don't bring on a case unless they know they got you. In this hotel room this day, it looked like Diddy was getting ready to have a freak off because there was baby oil in the bathtub. And this is just adding on more evidence of baby oil that they already pulled. We know.
Keep in mind, this is why I keep telling y'all, Chad, I definitely believe Diddy has some trauma that is from childhood. Because if the government was investigating me for a murder, and a murder with, I don't know, power tools, and I knew that they were well into an investigation where I have lawyers talking to them, if I go to the jurisdiction that investigation is going to, in my hotel, the number one thing I would know not to do is to have power tools. They're investigating you already for doing a murder involving you using power tools. You think that maybe an indictment is impending. You go to the jurisdiction where the indictment is about to drop. You get in a hotel. And when you get in a hotel, you get power tools in that hotel. Why the fuck would you do that? That sounds odd. You get what I'm saying?
That they already got 1,000 bottles of baby oil out of Diddy's home, and they also had these pictures from the assistant Philip Pines of baby oil with all of the text messages and everything else that he gave to the government. Another thing that they got when they raided this hotel room, they also had subpoenas to take and go through Diddy's cell phones. And in Diddy's iPhones, in his iCloud, is where they found more evidence against Diddy to try to use against him in this trial. Now, I assume this is the mood lights that they were talking about, because we have to remember Homeland Security actually already testified against Diddy about all of the stuff that they took out of the hotel. They even let the jury hold this stuff in their hands, the baby oil, the Toosie, all of it. Diddy had Ziploc bags in the closet filled of baby oil and Astroglide. This is the $9,000 in cash that they said that they found.
So these are all the hotel things they found, right?
There was another prescription.
I think Diddy got to have a mental problem. Bro, you could tell he has the same drugs that they're looking for. Not only that, and by the way, you know what I'm thinking? I think the government was so much on his ass. They probably knew the dealer he bought these drugs from, or somebody bought him from, right? Look, got an Astroglide.
These are. It's
Look.
the baby oil, the 2C, all of it.
The nigga even has Visine. Like, he has Visine in the joint with the money.
He had Ziploc bags in the closet filled of baby oil and Astroglide. This is the $9,000 in cash that they said that they found.
You see the Visine?
There was another
You see the Visine just now?
Astroglide. This is the
There's the Visine right here.
$9,000 in cash that they said that they found. There was another prescription bottle with all of these candies next to it, and even some more Astroglide in a drawer with whatever these are. But yeah, this just shows you Diddy's alias that Cassie Ventura talked about is obviously being proven as being his true alias, not just by Cassie's word. Because this man got caught with a prescription in the name Frank Black, and they have already talked to the holistic doctor where Diddy would have got this medication from. Because remind you, if this doctor was compliant, the feds are going to go to him like, you better tell us right now everything that we want to know about this man, because if not, we're going to take your license because you are prescribing somebody medication under a fake name. That's how the feds work. Same way with Diddy's co-conspirators, we know that they have went after some of them and they have agreed to testify against Diddy. And y'all know me, I love digging and putting information together, so the second that these photos dropped, I was on it. But y'all let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments.
Okay. All right, people. Cool. All right. Still back in court. Oh, actually, they didn't break for the day, did they? No. Okay, cool. They did not break for the day yet. Okay, cool. So here's some more things. Here we go. It says so we get to find out that it says, does Opera link a customer alias to their real name? Okin says yes. AUSA says in this one, it says, who is it really? Okin says Sean Combs. It says, could a guest change his or her alias? Yes. AUSA says, how is this usually paid for? It's to T. Fletcher at Bad Boy. It was paid for by the Amex of Sean Combs. AUSA says, what is this? The folio or a bill from room 59. AUSA says, what's this? Okin says a $500 charge for oil damage. Oh, shit. So it looked like Diddy paid a $500 charge for baby oil damage. AUSA says no further question. Keep in mind, this person worked at the Beverly Hills Hotel. What they're trying to do is show that Diddy, on an organizational level, was paying for these rooms that the freak-offs was happening. And yes, the freak-offs was happening because you would see baby oil damage. And those were also, charged as additional things of incidentals to his Amex card. That was a Bad Boy card, okay? So it looked like his Bad Boy card, let's go over it again. How was it paid for, right? It was paid for T. Fletcher at Bad Boy. And it was paid by the Amex of Sean Combs. What was this? It was a bill for room 259. What's this? It's a $500 charge for oil damage. AUSA says no further questions. Cross says, okay. Now, we don't know if Brian Steele is doing this one, but let's see. Says the accompanying guest was Cassie Ventura. Okin says yes. Defense says nothing more. So it looked like Diddy's team, all they had to say to this was, so they're not denying it, and they're not going to be like, oh, whatever. But they're basically saying, so there was a guest on every hotel, right? And it was Cassie. And they say yes. So again, what that does is actually, it really limits the scope of the freak-offs to Cassie being the only person who is a consistent member. But also, they kind of just leave it open-ended to say, yeah, but Cassie was the member, or Cassie was a guest as well, right? Okay. Who's next? Now, this is the person who got, what do you call it again? Immunity earlier. It says Eddie Garcia. Remember, it was Mr. Garcia? Now we find out it's Eddie Garcia. We're going to get him for an hour and a half. It says, then we're thinking the video expert, witness Jane, they'll have an international flight, so we'll try to get on her before. Now, the problem here in this case is that Diddy's lawyers want to expose everybody, so they want to take a lot of time. And the witnesses that the prosecutor has, they have a lot of witnesses, and they're like, hey, in us trying to schedule with these people to come to trial, we're trying to make sure they're in and out. We're not trying to make sure they're here all day. Diddy's lawyers are like, what the fuck? We're getting paid through the ass. Our job is to get a non-guilty verdict. Fuck his flight. Fuck the other person's flight. Fuck their schedule. We got to get all these questions in. So that's what it is. The judge says until tomorrow. What does that mean? Did they call it? Not sure. Okay, let's kind of go back. So we didn't get logic at all. Y'all know who else is doing like updates outside of the court? That'd be very important to know. Does anyone know anybody else? Ratchet TV? Let's look at entertainment tonight. The courtroom is absolutely thinning out, though. Like, it doesn't have as many people there. It is absolutely thinning out, you know? Somebody says Ratchet TV. We could look and see what. Are they outside court? Let's see.
And is there any?
No, there's no videos today. There's no videos today from them. Okay. Attorney Simone. Okay. What is this?
The S tapes where Cassie and other.
Yeah, but I don't know if she's in court. She's probably like phenomenal, but like, is she in court? Oh, here we go. Oh.
Good morning or afternoon now. It is your legal bestie, Attorney Simone. I am coming to you live from the Diddy trial. It is day 14. I don't count the days of jury selection. And this is Mia's final testimony. So I am so sorry for being late for you guys, but you know how court is. Like, you just never ever know. So anyway, and I wanted to make sure I outlined this so I can get to the facts, y'all. Get to the facts and get in and get out. Now, first off, let me know where you're watching us from. Hey, Wanda Young. Hey, H2O Ice. Y'all, we have a medium, tall, probably like 6'2", heavy-set Hispanic guy. He's actually wearing like some regular old pants and like a bomber jacket. Totally casual. I don't know, like maybe he goes to court all the time. I don't know, maybe he goes to jail a lot. Not really sure. But Eddie walked in, and the jury was not in there. And the prosecutor goes to the podium and she says, Eddie, you have been subpoenaed to be here today, correct? He said, yes. And it says...
That's the Eddie we're now seeing in here, right? Look, right? No, let's close this. Which one is that? No, let's close this. Yes. Oh, Eddie Garcia. Yeah, so she's talking about the earlier session where Eddie was brought up before the jury got in. And this Eddie person wanted immunity. Now, let's see what Eddie does that they might need immunity. We don't know yet. Who's Eddie?
Is it true that you wish to exercise your right to plead the fifth? He said, yes. So you won't be testifying today. He said, yes. He said, and then the prosecutor goes, all right, hand him the immunity agreement. And she says, basically, This is an immunity agreement. You will be immune from being tried for whatever you tell us. However, if you perjure yourself, if you lie on the stand, then you can be held liable for perjury. Got it. So he was like, okay. So then they took him off the stand, I guess because we're going to deal with him later, like he's going to testify later. They wanted to finish up with Mia. But I was like, who is Eddie? What is Eddie related to?
Of course, chat, I'm trying to show all the YouTubers love. The thing is, yo, chat, we'll have a big audience, and I'll show all these YouTubers love. You know, hopefully y'all go check out their channels. When it comes time to them talking about me, all hate. Like, none of them fuck with me. You know, ain't that funny? Like, I'll show them love. Like, yo, y'all go check them out. Oh, this is cool. This is dope. When it comes time to me, straight hate. That's why, like, you know, we got to pick and choose who we show love to because, you know, I'm not saying I'm doing it for people to show me love in return, but a lot of these people, for whatever reason, they have whatever against me.
Because Eddie don't look like the type that will work for Diddy, but Eddie clearly has some tea in that they forced Eddie. They are forcing Eddie to testify. So remember, guys, I taught y'all previously. If someone says, no, I'm not testifying, I'm pleading the fifth. If the prosecutor gives them an immunity agreement, they have to testify.
True.
They can't not testify because that immunity agreement takes away any chance that you'll have to go to jail. The fifth just says, I'm not going to talk my way in a jail cell. When you plead the fifth, that's you saying, I'm not about to talk my way into a jail cell. So if the prosecutor takes away any chance of you going to jail for your testimony, that's why they have to testify. So no, it wasn't Eddie Winslow, it was Eddie Garcia. Here's what I think. I think that Eddie is going to be related to the hotel. He very well may have been the person that accepted the $100,000 Diddy bribe. That is my guess. We're not sure yet, but if we hurry up and get done with Mia, Lord, please get done with Mia, because I'm sick of that.
Now, even though I'm not in court, as I'm thinking, she might be right. She might be right. I'm guessing, you know, obviously she's in court. We're not in court. She might be right on that assumption because we still haven't gotten to it. Because I'll tell you why. Eddie Garcia, and this is not me being racist or biased, Flores was the security guard who didn't take the bribe. Maybe it's just a security team that, I don't know, was it during Central City or something like that? Central City, like, you know, the Intercontinental Hotel. Maybe this is one of the other security guys, you know, Flores Garcia, not to make this a race thing, but maybe because Diddy don't look like he had Hispanic people in his orbit, right? Let's be honest, right? Only time we hear about somebody Hispanic other than Cassie Ventura was, especially a male, was the security guard. So maybe this person's with the security guard and look like, what's her name? Attorney Simone. She believes the same as well. So let's see.
If we get done with Mia, he should take the stand today, and I can't wait to see it. So again, he pled the fifth. They gave him immunity. Now he has to testify. So I think he might be, again, the hotel worker that was paid off to make the tape go away. If so, y'all, RICO has officially been proven, and that's bribery. And we've already had the S workers, right? We're the prostitutas who got on the stand and talked about working in 2 different states and being flown there. So if he gets up there and is like, yep, they bribed me, we got bribery, then we've got prostituta, then that's it. That's also, Eddie taking that money is also tampering with witnesses because Eddie is a witness. So that would be 3 RICO offenses.
Wait, tamper, is she, what? Now, the thing with the tampering with the witness charge, if I'm not incorrect, and I know this person's name is Attorney Simone, I generally don't like to disagree or argue with attorneys, especially if they've gone to school for it. I'm using common sense and just some research, so, you know, I know my place. Interesting.
Then we've got prostituta.
So the whole thing about, like, you know, bribing a witness or interfering with a criminal investigation, you're not technically doing that unless you have some tacit knowledge of a crime being committed or investigation into a crime happening. So if you're just doing your thing, that doesn't mean you're bribing a witness if, you know, you don't know that person's a witness. Like, your thing might just be to give people money or get people to shut the fuck up. That's not bribing a witness. paying somebody shut up is not bribing a witness. Bribing a witness would be like this person you now know is a witness, and you then try to do some shit.
And that's it. That's also, Eddie taking that money is also tampering with witnesses because Eddie is a witness. So that would be 3 RICO offenses. In addition to, there was also, drug distribution, substance distribution that was testified to by various people who staff.
Yo, chat, why y'all so horny? Like, can't we have a female attorney? Look like she's smart. Chat, does she talk shit about me too? Bro, I don't be knowing. I understand why people talk shit about me. It's probably like a good way to like come up. What does she do? Well, this is a W already. She don't got an Instagram, or it's not in a link tree. Hire her, okay. What does she do? Does anybody know her? In a background, attorney Simone. Is her name Simone Redwine? I'll find y'all her Instagram chat. Oh, it's right here. Here's her Instagram. Let's see her Instagram chat. Oh, her? Oh, she be on podcasts.
Were really brilliant. They did.
Oh shit. Y'all fucking with her?
I'm really go.
Y'all not gonna replace Lauren Conlon for me, chat. Stop playing. Stop playing. But okay, all right. Maybe she's smart, educated, and from what I could tell, she probably uses some colloquial terms and little, here's a tea, just to kind of like get people like ingratiate with them. But maybe she just knows what she's doing. This is like a picture of her. Okay. Chat, y'all horny. It's this level of horniness that caused Diddy to catch a case, right? Like, y'all gotta chill. This is her. Yo, y'all seen a W over Lauren Conlon? Okay. She looked mixed, right? She looked mixed. Yeah, but it's not about how she looks. It's about, like, the content of her brain. Right, chat? Like, come on, bro. It's about the content of her brain.
Hey, y'all. It's the...
Okay. All right, chat? Like, if y'all was just sitting here just looking at her, trying to say she's bad, like, that would be called creepy, right? Like, no, we trying to see if she's smart. It's the content and her character. It's the content and her character. It's not about how she looks. Just relax, chat. Okay, let's get back to it. What? Somebody said there's somebody called Sean G. Who's Sean G? Y'all be putting me onto people. I don't like. Is it this guy? Is this Sean G? It just says Soul, but he came up on the Google. I don't know. Y'all tell me.
And so forth that testified that Diddy would have him go and get the substances. Now, let's go back into Mia. I'm not going to drag this out. Mia. Now, first of all, Mia looks super cute. One thing I noticed about Mia is...
Okay. Yeah, y'all watch this. Hold on, I got to grab the food. What's it called? Applebee's came through. My Jamaican spot canceled on me. I can't believe. Give me a second. Let me grab the food.
There was also, drug distribution, substance distribution that was testified to by various